legs were really hurting her, and she thought she was moving too much. I think it was just something bad. It didn't matter.
Go ahead and get this
going.
We have a lot to get
So
through.
they
Okay.
interpreted emergency surgery.
Minutes will be coming.
Yes, minutes.
This week, correct?
My apologies, minutes will be coming. We'll hopefully do an e-vote on the minutes. I've been wiped out this past week by allergies and did not have an opportunity to get those done. So, moving into the meat of today's agenda. You didn't have me last time. Today we don't have Lindsay, so perhaps between both meetings we'll give you close to the full story. Our goal is to create new tiers for the cultural funding program, to introduce ideas like multi-year contracts and a way for organizations to become and to fall out of the cultural institution level. For those of you who may not recall, the city does have right now several organizations that we support that we call cultural institutions. They receive direct funding every year, and there's no real way for them to stop receiving that funding, even if they're not performing as well as we would like. I'm not suggesting that anybody currently falls into that category, but we don't want there to become a situation where they can just rest on their laurels and know that city money is coming to them without them meeting some sort of performance measures and without there being a way for them to stop receiving that funding. So there were multiple reasons to begin this project. Among them, just a desire to increase equity amongst our organizations between the funding they receive. But this is so you're seeing the latest version in probably multiple years of discussion on how to make this happen moving forward. So the 3 tiers, to remind you, I'm sure we went over this last time, but to remind you, 3 tiers are cultural partner, cultural anchor, and cultural institution. Happy to workshop any of those names at any point, but this is the low-hanging fruit. Cultural partner would work basically exactly how our process works today. So an organization that has at least 2 years of history serving the residents of the city of Wichita could apply for, and is a nonprofit and all of our other guidelines, could apply for funding from the cultural funding program. The cultural anchor is an organization that is at least 10 years old and in those 10 years has received funding from the city of Wichita at least 5 times. So we trust them a little bit more. And we are willing to give them a contract that says for the next X number of years, my suggestion is 3, we will give you funding at this level, and if rates come higher, we'll bump it up. That's a possibility. Or we can just leave it flat for 3 years. And then cultural institutions are organizations that are at least 20 years old and for our purposes today have received basically 15 years of funding from the cultural funding program. In the future, we would like it to be that any organization becoming a cultural institution has been a cultural anchor for at least 10 years, which would mean that they are at least 20 years old, because they had to be 10 to become an anchor, so they're now 20 years old, and they've received funding from us for at least 15 years, because they had to have 5 to become to become an anchor, and to stay an anchor for 10 years, that would give them an extra 10 years of funding. So we're sort of following those guidelines for our suggested new institutions, but it's a little loosey-goosey. But so those are our 3 tiers and what it takes to be one of those tiers. Performance measures haven't necessarily been set to stay one of those tiers, but if you don't meet your performance measure, the goal is that you would go down a tier. So if you're an institution, you go down to being an anchor. If you're an anchor, you go down to being a partner. And you would have to stay, like if you're an institution becoming an anchor, you'd have to stay down there for at least a multi-year contract. And once you've done that, you could move back up into, we would consider you to go back up into institution. For anchors going to partner, I think that's a little looser. It's at least 1 year, maybe more. Just making sure that they have stabilized and we trust them again moving back into the anchor part. The way that the funding would work for this is in our suggestion for institutions, the new institutions, they receive a set percentage of the total. So jumping ahead a little bit, but if you look Plan 5, which is our vertical sheet here, and Jim, I think you have a document labeled Plans 4 and 5. You'll see we have 5 institutions that we have identified as potential, or 5 large organizations we've identified toward the bottom as potential new institutions. So they're arts partners through Wichita Symphony Orchestra in that final sort of third. On the far right column, you'll see 0.67% and 0.59%. So whatever the total funding is for the cultural funding program, every year, they would get 0.67% of the total. Does that make some sense? Mm-hmm. The organizations that would receive 0.59 receive city funding, meaningful city funding in other ways. And so we're bumping them down a little bit for our purposes. If we add institutions in the future, that percentage would change, but our goal is that the money would not change. And so we likely would need to look into figuring out how to add funds or just shifting funds around between the tiers again. So that's sort of the very basic thing. So when you add those numbers up, you know, your 190,000-ish that we're seeing here from these 5 organizations, it's not ish, it's 190,000. If you remember, historically, the Cultural Funding Committee has had about $510,000 to assign to organizations. We would take that off the top. So we're now down to 320,000 because we're just giving these guys the institutional funds that they're doing. We then move down to the anchors, which would be those multi-year agreements, and whatever those are set at, these are just suggestions here. Whatever those are set at, we take that off because those are, every year they're roughly the same. And so we're left with, I believe in this example, a couple 100,000 to, that might be a little high. We're left with 111,000 to assign to the partners. So I've sort of explained them going from low to high in terms of the amount they can receive and their importance, let's say. When we take the money out, we'll go from the top and we'll go down. So just like the cultural funding thing itself is what's left over from our other institutions, the partners would be what's left over of that pot. Now in Plan 5, I know that the text is kind of small, but hopefully you can see, we would be able to maintain pretty much everything from fiscal year 25, what you awarded this year, we would be able to do again in Plan 5. So we're not talking about drastic cuts. We have discussed internally a cap for partners of $15,000. So you'll see PBS Kansas and Storytime Village are reduced slightly in Plan 5. And that is because we have discussed this cap. Just in an effort to try to make moving between these tiers a little more meaningful. For partners, we discussed a cap of $35,000. So you'll see Mark Arts was affected by that cap in Plan 5. And so they are basically earning the low end of what an institution can. As we go through this process, if we were to adopt this and move, we wouldn't necessarily start hitting those caps again because we can't go above that number. So these are averages. I'll get back to that in a moment. But
when you say above that number, what are you referring to?
So for Mark Arts, one thing that we're talking about with anchors is an average of their recent funding to be their award. And so since we can't go above 35,000, we wouldn't hit that number
I see.
again.
Jesse, should they be in the cultural institution based on their age? Like, I think they consider themselves as being founded in 1920.
I would agree with you on that part of it, but we don't have a historical record of funding them for much more than, I want to say 6 years. And so that's but again, I'm open to discussion and the will of the committee. But they are one that has bounced around in our discussions because of their age, because of the difference between their age and the number of years they've been funded by the city. Now, here's another data point for you, I suppose. Cultural partners, they will, like I said, that works basically how we work now. They reapply every year. So you guys would be reading in this exercise, 20 applications for partners. Anchors would just reapply when their contract is up. So if we do 3 years, every 3 years we've got an additional 13, or if they're, staggered for whatever reason, those could come at various times.
It'd probably only be staggered as organizations move up or down the tier.
As well as that, yes. And then institutions never have to reapply. And so as long as they're hitting their performance measures, they do not need to reapply for funding.
Have we looked at how, from a longevity standpoint, this model matures over time with organizations gaining tenure, and do we end up with a whole shift and we end up with more organizations in the upper tier, and then
it's entirely possible.
Not being able to fund many partners in the future and more organizations? Have we built a future cast?
Yes, actually, I have a bit. So one, I have a couple responses to that question. To answer your earlier one, I just wanted to double check my number. We do have 6 years of funding for Mark Arts. And so that's the thing has been holding them back in discussion from being a definite lock as a suggested institution. One thing you might notice on your agenda, there's in the third recommended action, if an organization today were to be placed in the anchor status, we would recommend that their qualifying years be reset to 0. So they would have to, if they were set as an anchor today, they would need to wait. It would be 10 years before they could become an institution.
Mm-hmm. And why do you recommend that?
Mainly to give things time to mature. It is definitely not punitive for anyone, but it
Except
is.
Mark Arts, maybe, right?
Well, but I mean, Mark Arts, they're 9 years away from what we would consider enough years to, and they are already receiving 35, which is, 5,000 less than they might be, but still very close to that institution number, anyway.
I like the reset because it allows us at least some time to evaluate this system. I think we were leaning towards 4 and 5 at last time we had a meeting in here. But just in my mind, to your point, we don't know how it's going to play out in that course of time. And even if the 3-year grant, we probably want 2 cycles of that to see if it's actually working well enough. And if we have somebody within the first 2 years being trying to move into the anchor position, we don't have enough data to determine what our funding limits are, what we're looking at. Right now I had it at 153 roughly if we were at Plan 5, that would be earmarked each year for the anchor organizations, which leaves us about another 100,000 or so for the
Little over 100,000.
Yeah. And right now that we have mostly small organizations currently laid out in the partners, and we took care of our smalls first last time, and we had a substantial amount of money still left over at the end. I feel good about the reset, just giving us time to evaluate. If it doesn't, we will know hopefully relatively early if this new system is working well and we need to pivot within 10 years.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that it's outside of the committee's power after a 3-year contract to say, okay, Mark Arts can move up, or okay, ballet can move up. But it would be my recommendation to just make this a clean refresh so that we're not redoing that, having to handle this every single year. There are a couple notes on this. One, to finish my response to you, Allison. When this tiered plan was initially developed, there was a suggested infusion of money from the transient guest tax to help this process along. It's my hope that that will still happen. I don't have any information to give you that that's even in the works yet, but to help just make this a smoother transition to get percentages higher, or to get the money that they're receiving higher. There was a small infusion of that. There's also a discussion about how to potentially limit year-over-year growth for our larger institutions and recapture that money and distribute it differently throughout the tiers. So if, for instance, Sedgwick County says that we average 4.9% growth for our tax levy every year. Well, if we told the art museum that instead of 4.9, you're getting 2 to 3, we can take that extra and redistribute it. I'm not saying that that's finished, but that is one suggestion for how to meet this issue that you pointed out, that, because I'm very much in favor of these large amounts going to as many organizations as possible so that, we can truly diversify the funding that we're giving out and give as many organizations a chance to succeed as possible. But yes, there are some other background levers that will likely need to be pulled to make it continue to work as we go in the future, to move forward in the future. Because if you look at Plan 5, these percentages are all over the place, and I would love for them to be a little closer to one another. We're never going to get them equal, but shave off a little here and there.
So just with our existing cultural institutions, their funding is already set on how you have a contract with those? How does that process work?
So their contracts, basically their contract starts at a number, And then it says that, subject to appropriations, it will go up with the raise in the cultural arts mill levy equivalent. And that usually means that, every time we say like, oh, we've got 7.9% more than last year to get out, all of those institutions go up by 7.9% as well.
And how long are their contracts normally?
They are usually around 3 years and rolling. We rewrote a number of them back in 2022, so a lot of them are up to be renewed, but they are basically written to be in perpetuity unless somebody says we need to change it.
So if counselors, staff change that contract and they roll up to adjust that, not guaranteeing the increase in the mill or whatever, that's possible.
It is, well, and it's the line subject to appropriations basically means that at any point, city council could agree to not give them the full increase. That has not happened. I think that there were some adjustments made during the first COVID year, but we don't anticipate city council saying, no to that. And I'm not saying that we would even kick that in anytime in the near future, but it's that, among other things, the infusion from TGT maybe, other potential sources of revenue are being kicked around internally to try to figure out how to continue to put more money in here. Our goal right now, though, is to hopefully, with the will of the committee, take the first steps forward in trying to change the cultural funding program to promote growth, like it says in our strategic plan. We did make a couple changes in that first colored box page. Based on the conversation from last time, we are, for now at least, saying that a cultural institution does need to have an annual operating budget of over $500,000. Just because it would be an interesting choice if the Wichita Chamber Chorale became an institution to bump them up from $2,400 to $35,000. It would be a lot. So for now, we're saying that it should probably be 500,000. The other yellow highlighted, it's kind of difficult to see what it's referencing, but it's referencing Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and Wichita Public Library Foundation. This gets into the second, the second major part of Plan 5, which is that for Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and the Wichita Public Library Foundation, because they do receive such a much larger percentage of their budget from city funding, that they would not be eligible for operational grants from the cultural funding program. That money that would be zeroed out from them, which is about it's $27,600, combined with a bit of savings from the new institutions and a couple other, like the anchors, we would be spending a little less on the anchors overall. That would be thrown together with the artist access grants to create what we're calling right now the activation grant, which is our redevelopment of the developing arts grant. This is on the very last page of your stapled document. Activation grants are one-time grants meant to activate an individual's or an organization's creative potential through operational development or through the development of new works. So this is all just suggestions, but staff would recommend, or the order of consideration for awarding these grants would be operational development for individuals. That's essentially the artist access grant. And then artistic project development for individuals, and then artistic project development for nonprofit organizations. This is something that Lindsay's very passionate about, is being able to offer some sort of project grant. Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and Wichita Public Library Foundation would be eligible to apply into this grant opportunity. But no organization with City of Wichita staff members, we recommend, should be eligible to apply. So that's very much like the Arts Thrive grant, if you'll recall. But we are recommending a pot of $50,000 be set aside for these opportunities. And then anything, not in that 50,000 pot and not going to institutions or anchors would be given out to the partners. Now that number that I've said before, that 111,000, that does not mean we're taking the 50,000 out of that. 50,000 has already been taken out. So it is still 111-ish thousand that would be available. So this is a lot of information. The goals for this are to create a tiered program that organizations can look at and see how they're growing through it and why it would be important to grow through it. Multi-year contracts, to not having to apply at all as long as we're hitting performance measures. More funding, from being capped at 15 to being capped at 35 to then being at 40 and hopefully more if we can pull some of these levers in the background. And then on top of that, creating this new secondary grant opportunity that reimagines our two separate secondary opportunities as one pot of money serving multiple goals.
And this committee could decide how we want to split in the activation grant between those three tiers.
Absolutely. You can even decide, I think, it's my opinion, that you could decide even how much how big the pot is. If you want to say year one, okay, it's only 25,000, it's not 50,000. That's well within your rights. 50,000 was a number that easily came up thanks to some of the other changes we were making, and so that's where I started with it.
I think 50 is fair based on what we've done with artist access and adding the 2 new ones in there. I think we can spend $50,000 pretty effectively in the perspective.
I would be surprised if you couldn't.
Yeah.
So I just want to very briefly, just so that I'm not pigeonholing you all, I want to try to go through, I know this is a bunch of numbers, I'm going to go through as generally as possible these plan options and sort of how we got where we were. So in plan 1, throughout all these plans, the existing institutions maintain their current level of funding. So we're not touching them. New institutions in Plan 1 receive either 0.51% or 0.58% of the total. And so you can see here that's 34,300 or 3,300. Anchors, it's an allocation based on the previous 3 years of funding. That's a suggestion. I think that there's probably going to be some negotiation that happens amongst the committee because some anchors really do drop pretty hard. So that's something that will need to be discussed. And then partners are awarded from the remaining pool. There is still an artist access category in Plan 1. It's just set at what it was in FY25, 14,323. Plan 2 is roughly the same as Plan 1, but instead of a set percentage, the new institutions, which let me point out in this case does include TCAM, the new institutions receive, instead of a set percentage, an average of their previous funding as well. The main issue that I have with this one is that it zeroes out a lot of the cultural partners. Or basically it reduces the cultural partner funding by about $30,000. And I just did that as an average on all of them, and that zeroes out a bunch of them. But again, if the committee would prefer to go that way, we will make it work. So Plan 1, set percentage. Plan 2, average funding. Plan 3, removes, I'm sorry, that I didn't highlight it on the page, it took me a second. Plan 3 removes Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and Wichita Public Library Foundation. So it's the same as Plan 1, but it removes those two organizations and creates the activation grant opportunity. So the percentages are a little lower for the new institutions. TCAM is still an institution. And the two organizations are zeroed out. I had a lot of math to do over the last week. Plan 4 is basically the same as Plan 3, except we moved TCAM out of the institution category because they, like Mark Arts, are one of those that has bounced around back and forth. We're just trying to figure out where everybody fits. So in this version, TCAM is bumped out. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's FY25 I'm looking at. Yes, and there's still the activation grant opportunity because Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and the Wichita Public Library Foundation are still zeroed out. And then Plan 5, the one I've been talking about, bumps up the percentages for the institutions. Lindsay felt that they were not yet meaningful enough at their levels that they were before. It sets those caps that I talked about, 15,000 and 35,000. Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center, Wichita Public Library Foundation are zeroed out, and the activation grant is created.
A question about zeroing out Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and the Library Foundation. Do you think that will feel more equitable to them? They're not having to compete for these funds where, like, they're not really, like, they'll fit more into this activation grant than the operational funds?
I believe that's Lindsay's feeling, is that it's been hard since she's been here, since I've been here, to truly understand, to truly fit them into what we do. And then there's also the argument that, the library's already publicly funded. And Friends is a bunch of organizations in a trench coat. And one of those organizations is the city's Parks Department. And so, nothing against them, but we feel that moving them to a project-based grant would align more with what we try to do.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. They wouldn't be subject to all these restrictions, and then we don't have to have that discussion every year.
Yeah.
It does seem like Plan 5 is the most equitable. Because I think I do like the caps at each tier, because then that provides an incentive to move up. Because otherwise you could, stay a partner forever and just have really competitive applications, get more money than an acre or whatever.
Yes. That was a difficult hurdle to overcome in adapting this plan to our current situation. Mm-hmm. In the pie in the sky version of this, institutions, the newest institutions are receiving between $70,000 and $90,000. So there's a definite jump getting up there. Mm-hmm. And in the future, I hope to get closer to that. But yes, creating those caps does give, not having to apply every 3 years. Hopefully just being able to be called an institution would be something. Yes, and that small jump in funding will hopefully be what organizations need.
We can make really big checks.
Yeah, really big check. I'm, as they say at City Council, I stand for questions. Please pick it apart. We have a lot of things that we would like you to vote on today. if it's the will of the committee to not vote on anything today, it's the will of the committee, right? Like, you guys are here for a reason. You help us make these decisions. I'm not just looking for you to rubber stamp this. I would love it if you would approve the calendar
Yeah.
today, but,
We guarantee we'll approve the calendar.
okay.
Or approve it with changes.
Yes. But I've been working on this for a long time, and so I'm ready to talk about it.
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to add that I appreciate all the work that you've put into it. You trust us to make the decisions, but we trust so much of your time to prepare this and your
Yeah.
expertise
Thank
and
you.
all the just like one-on-one time that you get with these organizations to really understand what their needs are.
Mhm. Yes. I will just reiterate a point on the anchors. You know, I am empathetic to the fact that Harvester, you know, in this suggestion would go down from 25 to 14,000. Like, that's not great. So it's definitely, I think the partners especially, if we choose to go with this plan and we choose to have people come in, sorry, the anchors especially, that would be something where we would just need to make sure we were careful.
I mean, they'd be a whole new grant cycle. So they would apply for the anchor this time around, and then we would determine their funding at that rate for the next 3 years.
Yes.
So it'd still be competitive. We just kind of have a pot of money. So you just kind of laid out dollar amounts temporarily
Yes.
to make it as equitable as possible.
Just to give an example, we do think that it should probably be based on their historical funding, but because funding has historically fluctuated for a lot of these groups, it can get a little wonky. But I think using the historical average as a starting point and moving from there is not a bad plan.
Yeah, I think it's good. The only thing I would want to have like more discussion on, like, I love the partners and anchors, how those are laid out, the thought process there. I don't know what we need to do to address the institution and what kind of other issues may be involved as we look at adjusting the dollar amounts from one organization. It's been a legacy institution, which percentage-wise are quite a bit, and then also Arts Council not really having that $500,000 operational budget. Just
Yeah.
kind of falling into that discussion point as well.
That will be, I think that touching legacy institutions will be something that we have to discuss carefully, and right now I've included them so that you all can see the whole picture. That's my main.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I think if we have that 10-year window just reset,
Sure.
It gives us time to roll off and somebody else deal with that problem.
So you think 10 years before, I guess, okay, so the legacy institutions, are their contracts going to be in line with these new institution contracts? Or do we kind of have two different institution types for the next 10 years?
If the committee agrees to set these tiers, including the standard that institutions can become institutions no longer, city staff will make sure that legacy institutions will be held to the same standard. I will say, for the sake of full transparency, that will probably not apply to City Arts, will probably not apply to Cowtown. You know, there will be a smaller amount of the legacy institutions. But we need to be able to hold them to a standard. And that's sort of what we're asking the committee to help us set today.
So will we have a new process of yearly review for like these performance reviews, or is that staff?
We think that it's possible that there will be a subcommittee that looks at these.
Okay.
But again, I think that's a discussion to have as a larger committee a little further down the line. There's always this looming shared services model with the county that may add 5 people, 4 to 5 people to our committee. And so with even more people on the committee, it would be easier to continue to do things like subcommittees. Yes, we do want, no matter what, even if we continue our current process for the next X number of years, we would love for the Cultural Funding Committee to start looking at annual reports as well.
Was there any thought, like, the idea of averaging them over the time, and then they end up, like, maybe this organization has done a really good job of progressing themselves over the years.
Sure.
And then we're penalizing them by taking an average. Did we look at just picking their most successful, I don't know, if it would be either going with the current year, or going with what they're giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying they're most successful? I don't know what that would do in the numbers, but.
No, it's.
But I think that's not, like, their performance isn't the only factor in years which they got more funding. It had to do also with, like, the amount of funding that was available and the number of other applicants. I don't know that that is an attractive option to me personally.
If we kept them at, like, we'll say this, our current funding level we have them at, that would dramatically reduce the amount of money we have for the partner organization, correct? If we just look at the column, the FY25 column, and we just subtracted out the 30, whatever that is, the 27, we're at 153 with the average. Because again, we can adjust the amount they can get. That's just kind of a placeholder for the sum, is what I'm understanding for the anchor organizations.
Give me one moment.
Yes, they're still going to apply for the funding, and then that will be their.
Oh, I see.
Because the downside is that.
So it's not that we're capping it at that amount of the average out the gate?
No.
Okay.
So, yes, it's about a reduction of about $30,000. You know, if you went from the amounts they receive in FY25 to the amounts that, on my example, they're receiving, we're giving them $30,000 less. Now, and that's not including Friends and the Public Library Foundation. Yes, I think.
I'm just thinking, like, the Harvester Arts example, I think is a good one, right?
Right.
Where they were at 25,000 and then now the average is at 14.
Right.
And they've really grown and done a great job over the years, so I feel like that's a pretty big.
It is.
And again, I mean, we judge every application as a fresh new year, and then with my knowledge of where they have their processes and application, that growth and the amount of money they've received has been the work they've done. When I came on in 2020, the application and the overall process was not great in their ability to share their story. The committee had issues with that. I have told them, I've told you this last 2 years, they have truly done the right job of showing us what they do. So if you look at that without any previous knowledge, they got the money they deserve, and I would assume they perform that same way this year.
Well, and I'm not saying that I'm not impartial, because obviously I am. But I will say, trying to come at it realistically from a member of this committee, what we're giving these people in the anchor status the opportunity to do is to actually be guaranteed for 3 years in a row money that they know they can count on. And to nonprofits at this level, that is really worth a great amount. They don't have to apply for 3 years. They don't have to write a grant. Writing grants drives us all crazy. So I can make that argument to any of these, you know, including Harvesters Board, that it's probably the right thing to do.
I think that there's
apply for that anchor.
There's probably a number between 14 and 25 that we could find for Harvester. when I look at Harvester's historical, what they've received historically, it went just in the last 4 years from 3,500 to 10,600 to 18,500 to 25,000. That's extreme. Like, and so part of my hope is that maybe
Maybe it's the most recent 2 or 3 years that you average,
Sure.
and not go back the whole time.
not to go back. Well, I mean, it's not. I think I did 3 years, and I could go. We could do the previous 2 years, or I could give you a range, and you could decide where in that range you want to place them.
You wanna add like a sliding scale?
Yeah,
Submittable?
I can't do that, but I'll figure out how to do something.
So are we discussing like the amount of money we want to set aside for the anchor? Or are we talking about specific organizations, what they think it should be funded at right now?
I think we're talking about what is the fairest way to decide how an amount that an anchor receives. What's the fairest way to decide what do we offer the anchor as their contract? And I think Allison is saying for an organization like Harvester that exploded, which they may have always been doing great work, but for us, they exploded. It's not necessarily fair to them to reach back too far for their average.
What if we said maybe 2 years, which would be pretty much posting most COVID issues for the average? You like that idea? We just looked like last year and the year before.
I think the range is a good suggestion
Yeah.
too. That level of flexibility, I feel like, would allow us to accommodate special circumstances like this one.
Sure. I think the reason, I'm so sorry, very briefly. I think the reason I chose 3 years is because in my construction of this, the multi-year contract is 3 years. And so I think that just worked for me. Go ahead, sorry.
My question is, if we're using this average as a starting point and then a discussion of whether we deviate from the calculated average. Because it seems like we want some flexibility to address special circumstances like harvester or really just reward rapid growth like
Yeah.
that.
And the opposite could be true as well. I'm trying to see, I mean, it's not the biggest example, but for instance, Opera Kansas goes from $2,000 to $4,000. And that's because they've gone down in the funding that they've received. Which, speaking as a member of their board, I hope that reverses, but, I think that Allison's point is a great one and well taken, and I think that using these numbers as a starting point and offering options and letting that be the meat of what the committee is deciding for these multi-year contracts is what is a fair number is, I'm on board.
I like that a lot. So then we talk about the institutions and we're gonna decide a percentage. Like it's flipping between these two percentages if they have other public funding or not.
Yes, so I'm a big fan of percentages. Let me start off by saying that. I think that you get to start to see when things are fair and when they're not, when you look at the percentage of something. It doesn't always work, obviously, but I think that if you can say to an organization, you're going to receive, X amount of the total every year, and that's what everybody at your level gets, with this caveat that unless you're already receiving significant public funding. To me, that is a fair way of going about it. But again, we do have Plan 2, and I'm not saying we use all of Plan 2, but you can look at Plan 2 for that average number. I know it's sort of hard to find, but it's there in that lower third, starts at 28.5 and it goes down to 46,116. We do have, you know, it is possible, if the committee would prefer, to start at an average number for these organizations and work your way out from there, because some of them admittedly do jump up quite a bit. Some of them are cut, but that is the process, and the goal, unfortunately, is to squeeze everybody a little closer together.
It certainly would be easier to just decide these two percentages.
Yeah. Excuse me. Need another contract. Pardon me. If anybody has strong feelings, I mean, you know, it's, arts partners would go up by $12,000 a year. Exploration Place would drop significantly, but, you know, I think they can weather that. We're already basically a drop in the bucket for Exploration Place. MTW is roughly the same as they were this year. Ulrich goes way up, but, you know, Ulrich has been with this program since the very beginning. And they do great work out there. The symphony bumps back up a little bit. It's.
I really like this plan.
Glad to hear.
There's my strong opinion.
Thank you.
Number two, which one?
Number 5.
Five, okay, five.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Like the Exploration Place one, I know it seems harsh, but as the pool gets more competitive and there's more bodies in, they traditionally receive less and less what I've been on this committee as far as giving them, even though they've scored off the charts in most occasions. So at least to our point earlier, we are able to provide at least some stability, and they know they're going to get $35,000 from us guaranteed. That is a body, you know, in the gift shop or somewhere they don't have to worry about.
Now, let me state just for the record, this is all requires them to successfully apply into this program. Now, it won't look, I don't think the application looks any different. You know, in my opinion, it doesn't look different. We just have to say, yes, you can do this. It's entirely possible they opt not to. But their cap, if they stayed as an anchor, their cap would still be 35 if we went with Plan 5. Now they just don't have to apply every 3 years. If anybody here thinks Exploration Place isn't going to hit their performance measures, please let me know. Yeah, it would be bad for the whole city.
I apologize if I'm asking questions that have already been addressed.
That's okay.
What if new organizations apply? How do you handle that?
New to the program or new to the institution level?
New to the institution level.
So, one suggestion that I have made for today is that if this is what the committee would prefer, like the ones that are labeled anchor for Plan 5 become the anchors or are invited to apply into the anchor position, they would need to be anchors for 10 years before they could become an institution.
I don't think I answered your question correctly. What if Music of Wichita is a new organization?
They would go into the partner level, and the partner levels, these numbers are not set. These are not set numbers here at the top. These
You
are,
can't be brand new and apply to be an institution, you gotta work your way out.
You have to be 20 years in this, serving the city.
so let me take a step back and just explain the tiers really quick, just in case. Just in case. To be a partner, you have to be at least 2 years old as an organization, just like this past year when we had our applicants. And you have to be a nonprofit, you have to meet all of our other guidelines. You are not guaranteed any specific amount of funding. To be an anchor, you have to be at least 10 years old as an organization. And you have to have received city funding 5 of those 10 years. To be an institution, you have to, for today's purposes, you have to have been at least 20 years old as an organization, and you have to have received funding for at least 15 years. Going forward, we would like to say that to be an institution, you have to have been an anchor, a successful anchor for 10 years. So it's basically the same thing. It's the 5 years funding to move from partner to anchor, 10 years funding to move from anchor to institution, 15 years of funding. Because you have to be 10 years old to become an anchor, spending 10 years as an anchor, you're now 20 years old. So if Music of Wichita applies, and they are at least 2 years old, they can apply as a partner. And they get, once the money for the institutions has been removed from our pot, and then the money for the anchors has been removed from our pot, we allocate the rest of that money as the committee decides to the partners.
Okay. And then organizations such as the Wichita Art Museum that have agreements with the city, are those annual agreements?
They are multi-year agreements, and they are basically set to roll until we decide that they need to be rewritten with consultation with the institution. The main issue that this is attempting to solve is that there's no way for those legacy institutions to stop being institutions. We want to set at least the standard that you have to hit your performance measures for X number of years. Right now, I believe it's 2 years. Or if you have 2 years of failing your performance measures, you're gonna fall out of institution status. You gotta spend a multi-year contract as an anchor, and then you can reapply into institution status. I wanna, someday down the line, I'd love to come back and look at the amounts that we give those legacy institutions and see if they can be tweaked or, or frozen, or, just slowed down, and the money that we can recapture from that can be redistributed, but that's down the line from today. For right now, all I'm saying is I'm not touching them. I just got them there so you can see the full picture.
I like the idea of having a check-in the future to analyze
Absolutely.
how this change impacted everybody.
Absolutely. Well, we will still be, every single one of these organizations will still be filling out an annual report, which is how we're going to determine their performance, how they do on their performance measures.
But it's less than what we're going on now.
Not really for the annual report. For the application, yes, because the institutions will not be applying. The partners will only be or the anchors will only be applying once every 3 years or so. But the partners apply every year. And that really gives us an opportunity to check in with them, use this as a capacity building so that hopefully by the time they hit anchor, we trust them and we know they're doing good work. Three-year contracts as an anchor plus a 1-year extension at the end, 10 years is my goal.
So then when we go to review, we'll be able to review it like largest to smallest, like, cause the organizations applying to be an institution, that's a yes or no question. And then the organizations applying to be an anchor, it's a yes or no question. Then we start with the average and discuss if we want to increase or decrease their contract amount. And then the partners are like normal.
Yes.
I like that.
And so,
That gives me like,
but there's
Yeah.
a lot less of them.
yes.
No, Jesse knows more.
Yeah.
No comment.
But he's gonna get us more
He'll
money
go
too.
start more new
No comment.
comments every year.
I like it, we know how much we're gonna have with partners guaranteed,
Yeah.
flat out.
Yes, it will. I mean, this year will be a lot of work just in determining what these numbers are, but like next year, we'll know right away. $350,000 is taken up by the contracts we already have. And so we've got just $150,000 to allocate to 23 new organizations.
Have you had any communication with the organizations, with any organizations about this change?
I have not been allowed to talk to anybody about this. Like, I'm surprised I'm being allowed to talk to you all about this today. We have talked to them about the concepts, multi-year contracts, moving to and from institution status, set levels of funding, things like that. And they're aware that a goal for that is coming, and our objective is to get there. And they've all been very, like Ann said, they're all eager to have things a little more set in stone. And to maybe not have to sit through Q&A day every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, there's a miss us.
Yeah. Well, now we'll have you all do a site visit.
With the,
Actually, that'd be more fun.
Yeah, it's true.
Did you say recitals?
Site visits.
Site visit.
Oh, I was like.
They're making recitals.
I mean, okay.
The singer in the room. You need me to sing? What? Oh, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna have to go ahead and resign.
Jesse, with always this discussion of shared services, this plan, we would hope, could be easily revised and adapted with the other county initiatives as well. Has there been discussion
I have looked at that.
that working?
I looked at it. All it does is just changes the percentage numbers. And since we're already saying we know these percentage numbers are gonna change if we ever add institutions, we're just gonna hope the funding number stays the same. Percentage versus number. Yeah. So yeah, because we add in Sedgwick County Zoo, that's an extra $9 million on top of this. And, we're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
everybody's down to like 0.02% of the total. I mean, it's just what it is. So, we will cross that bridge when it comes to it, but everything does, yes, very easily just slides into this and it will.
But I think, did you say before that Sedgwick County doesn't have a program like the city does?
That's
So
correct.
that if we do become combined, we would rely on the program that we've
Yes.
developed?
Yes, there's actually, Sedgwick County likes our program. And so some of their funding may shift to our pot of funding. So we may have like a larger pot for our partners. So it's just, that's all up in the air though. I'm not really part of those conversations. I think there's a committee right now looking at what the cost savings would be if we adopted that shared service model. So I don't have much news for
But
you
if
guys.
we did that, would there be more partners?
It's possible.
I mean,
Oh, you better believe I'll be knocking on doors.
when you cover
Yeah.
Sedgwick County, then you've got,
Yep,
quilting groups and
yep,
Yoders up there. Yoder's not in Sedgwick County, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, the partners, but again, and we would likely need to add at least seats for all the Sedgwick County commissioners onto this committee. So we would likely need to look at how work is redistributed amongst the committee itself.
Sure.
But that is a problem for tomorrow. Because again, the only information we're getting is a big old shrug emoji. So, got nothing for you.
Worry about that meeting too.
That's right, yeah.
But could we represent both our county and the city?
You would.
I would, okay. I thought you meant like add another person.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yes. You would not represent both Arts Council and the county. You would be either a county seat or a District 5 seat or an Arts Council seat.
No, I mean Stephanie Wise is my county seat.
Sure.
And Jay Johnson is my city seat. Can't I represent both of them?
I don't know.
One person to represent both.
So you get 2 votes, is that one? Yeah, I don't know.
Just a thought.
Yeah, it is a
I mean,
good,
a smaller committee has some
as it's
value.
in that, yes.
I think we're a good size.
I agree with that.
Adding 6 more people around the table.
I get it, yeah.
That's a little frightening.
It
Yeah,
is
say it out
frightening.
loud.
Yeah.
What if
We
there's
did-
not
yeah.
enough lunch?
It may need to pull out a meeting.
But as Jesse said, that's another discussion, where I
Yeah.
brought it up.
Yeah, it's,
Let's not create more
Not-
work for ourselves.
let's not
We
panic.
need to.
Okay, so coming back, are we ready to make a decision?
I-
I'm like really
I
excited.
think we're always open for motions if you'd like to. Would the committee like to go through each recommended action, or we want to address it as one big? Jesse, what makes the most sense?
I'm gonna be honest, I know that it's annoying, but I would prefer if we went through the recommended actions. Just because it's so much to track. And I wanna leave the committee opportunity for nuance, to make adjustments. So, I mean, the initial recommended action said approve the creation of a new tiered structure for the cultural funding program following Plan 5. We removed following Plan 5 because we didn't want to lock you guys into one thing, but, so it's whatever you wanna do.
So if you'd like to make a motion for the first action item.
I would love to. Would you say so moved?
And we are, this is following Plan 5.
Plan 5. So we have a motion to approve the creation of a new tiered structure for the cultural funding program according to Plan 5. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Jeez, Beats. That's the biggest change to this program in over a decade. Sorry. That's, good job, everybody. That's a lot. Yeah, it's,
All right. Do we have any discussion we want to have about the placement of existing participants in the 3 tiers? So Jesse, if you look at the big sheet for Plan 5, we discussed it quite a bit, but if there's any concerns or changes, I believe the big one between 5 and the other one was TCAN moving into the anchor.
that is the main change from 3 to 4 and 5, from page to page. We've also had a discussion today about mark arts. I don't want to ignore that.
And then we'd be moving the Friends of Great Plains Nature Center and the library to the, taking them out of this pool, but allowing them the access to the activation grant.
I'm on board with leaving Mark Arts as an anchor, moving Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center, Wichita Public Library Foundation, but can I ask, would you just explain again why TCAN moved from an institution to an anchor?
I believe they are technically at 14 years of funding.
Well, I thought I read somewhere in your notes, they also are not consistently above that $500,000.
That's also a major
Oh,
problem,
okay.
is that they're not consistently above 500,000.
But I think the Mark Arts one is okay as long as we can explain how we got there. Because I think
Yeah.
when they say, how can you say we're not an institution, we've been here since 1920?
Right,
It's not clear on that. When you think of an institution in our community.
I agree, I agree.
But we set the criteria.
Yeah.
We're following the criteria.
This is not just about what's important to Wichita, it's about who have we given our money to for a long time and can trust with that money. And Mark Arts, I'm sorry, I don't mean that like negatively, I'd set a number somewhere.
And I think it helps to like, just be consistent across
Yes.
the board. You know, we can argue for Mark Arts in either category, but I do agree that it's better to show consistency.
And I will restate, because Martha wasn't here when I said it, I still think that it is absolutely the will of the committee, if after a 3-year contract, you guys want to bump them up, we can absolutely have that discussion. That's, if you want to.
Then can I move to approve the suggestion in Plan 5 for placement of existing participants in the program into these 3 tiers, pending they apply successfully?
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
You can have it, Trish.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Wait for Jim to jump in after. this already. The next recommended action was to approve the number of qualifying years in the organization to be placed in the cultural partners and anchors to 0. We've had quite a bit of discussion about it. I feel that we like that idea with the caveat that we've mentioned a few times in here that we have the ability to, if we feel after the first cycle that somebody deserves to or it's needed, we could.
May I say one more thing, just because I don't know that I've been clear about it? Same with the anchor, resetting them to 0 and wanting them to be 10 years, it would be the same with the partners. We want them to be partners for 5 years before we would consider them for anchor status.
Even if they are close to being publicly funded for 5 years?
That is, again,
We're resetting that fund.
the goal, the suggestion was to reset the clock, but, I'm open. I think we had, our closest one was the Wichita Jazz Festival at 4 years. And then I think McCormick School Museum at 3 years. So you could absolutely, a year from now, consider them if you wanted. But it's just, again, a suggestion.
I like the clean slate and fairness of it. And if we have to make a decision, we could, not everyone's gonna be happy. There's gonna be some people that fall off. Thoughts, issues?
And that logic that we discussed with the anchor category stands for the current category 2, it gives us time to kind of like figure this out and see how it goes before we start moving people into different categories. And to me, that just feels like a solid approach.
I'm gonna word with that.
So then I will move to approve setting the number of qualifying years for any organization placed in a cultural partner or cultural anchor tiers to 0.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, well, actually, a new talking point, Jesse.
Yes.
Timeline.
Oh my gosh. Just to speak to the Jazz Festival really quick, they have received funding for 2 years in a row now, but there was a 3-year hiatus before that.
Okay.
So, you know, there's wiggle room there. There's things to discuss. So very briefly, second page of your stapled thing, it says notes for tiered structure at the top. Very bottom there, 2026 operational grant opportunity calendar. I would like to suggest that operational grants open May 5th. That's a Monday. That is also, we have a final day to tweak, Thursday, May 1st, before we do it. I would like to also point out very quickly that this is basically the same calendar as last year. But no Arts Thrive immediately after. So, a little bit better. The grants would close on August 4th, a Monday. So I love to give organizations a weekend and a Monday, because I would want that. And then September 18th, Thursday would be the Q&A. September 25, Thursday, deliberations. And then our normal October meeting to finalize those recommendations.
Any thoughts?
Just extension season for taxes. So that only affects me. I think it's great.
All right.
Is that the same? Did you do September?
Mm-hmm.
We did, because we got delayed because of the cultural plan. I did have a calendar that was much sooner than this a couple months ago, and then Lindsay goes, no, I want to do the tier thing. And I was like, oh, God, okay. Anyway, sorry.
There's no discussion, I'd be open to a motion. We have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Opposed? The one thing I promised we'd get done with that, Jesse.
Thank you so
We have
much.
so much more done.
We have gotten a lot done. Can we flip the two actions? Can we do the last one and then we'll move up one? Sorry.
I was like, phew.
I know, that was rude of me.
I think it's the easy one. We all like where the thought process is of this. Do we need to set an amount at this point or just?
I don't think so. I think just the creation.
So one of the things by removing Friends of Great Plain and the Wichita Public Library Foundation.
We can go back on this.
Do you want to fill her in? Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
so very briefly, bumping to remind the whole group, now that we've removed Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center and Wichita Public Library Foundation from operational funding, that funding plus general savings throughout due to slightly lower amounts, and combining that with the Artist Access Grant Fund, we are recommending the creation of a $50,000 activation grant opportunity, is what we're calling it. It's the last page of your stapled document. Basically, it has three considerations. The first is operational development for individuals. That's the Artist Access Grant part of this. The second is an artistic project development for individuals. The third is artistic project development for nonprofit organizations. In my opinion, it should be considered in that order, but those are at least the three categories we want to be affected by this opportunity. $50,000 is just a suggestion. I think that once the number comes in for 2026, the committee can absolutely set it at whatever they choose. So that's why we're just talking about creating the opportunity so I can start developing an application, things like that. But it is a replacement for both the Artist Access Grant and the Developing Arts Grant. It's basically both things together.
Yeah, and we're hoping we could get the Wichita Public Library Foundation and Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center to apply in that, but solve some of our issue about where they fit into the operational aspect. We still provide them access to additional public funding for an artistic purpose. Because a lot of the things they come in with, we have discussion of its program or how it fits into this, and this removes that discussion, hopefully, out of here.
So. Okay, thank you, Dominic.
All right, any further discussion? If not, if you have no motion?
Oh, quick question.
Yes.
Coordinate.
You go first.
A second.
Oh,
yeah, I thought you
There was a question.
Question, yes.
Oh,
She wants to move.
Yeah.
You want a question.
I just have a question about the name. Is
Is
the name final? Because I feel like activation grant sounds like
We can,
setting up new
we can
organizations.
discuss that.
Okay.
That's not
Okay, I
necessary
didn't
for
know
the
if we
motion right
finalized that
now.
part. That's
Lindsay hated the name development grant, and so I was like, okay, let me look at the cultural plan, and I was
But
like,
it's
oh,
for-
activate and strengthen creative potential. It's an activation grant.
But it's operational development and development of new.
I
work.
agree with you, but that was shut down.
Okay, well, I'll argue that with.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So we have a motion with discussion of the naming.
Secondary grant opportunities.
Oh, yes, I move that we do that.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Write
passes.
notes in it.
I'll just do what they do in subtitles. Unintelligible.
Okay, for the record.
Okay, let me talk, I believe I did send you guys a copy of the application. Not a lot of changes right now, and again, if we want to table this to May 1st, I think that's absolutely an option. But I wanted to start the conversation. There are a few questions at the top and a little bit, and there will be a lot of rollout of this tiered stuff. I'm not just gonna dump it on them. But it's a final reminder on there of what are you applying into and how much are you seeking, even though that's a little more up to us this year. for the most part, I have left everything the same because I thought it worked pretty well last year. The main thing that I've done is, and I'm sorry, Jim, but the 990 instead of financial documents didn't really work for our purposes. So I'm requesting that they give us the 3 years of statements of activity and balance sheets, because we have so many organizations that have fiscal years all over the place. It just became, what am I even looking at? What year am I looking at? And because they can apply, or they can do their taxes up until what feels like 18 months later.
6 months.
Well, it felt like 3 years later. That experiment didn't work as well for me as I would like. And so I would like to have that data. So that is the major change, is just requesting that they give us, as we did the year previous, 3 years of those documents. If anybody wants to make any suggestions about changes to the narrative or changes to other data that we're requesting, that's absolutely on the table. This is all truly open. I just thought I didn't have many changes that I wanted to see, but
I feel like we discussed some previously.
and I can go back to the
I don't
notes.
remember the detail though.
I think I would
There was
prefer
a
to.
question that was hard to evaluate what they were answering.
Okay? I can go back to the notes.
Oh, yeah, they answered in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics.
Okay.
Is that one thing we could push to the next
Would you have enough time to make adjustments and get back, okay,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
from the 1st to the 5th?
right, so.
What's
I didn't think
that?
about that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have time to go find this answer. If there's other things y'all want me to look into between now and May, I can do that too. If it comes to you in the middle of the night, send me an email. But then, yes, also if there are changes between May 1st and opening it on May
Okay.
5th.
Easy, okay.
Easy.
Yeah, I think, Mark, I think there was a couple that we had out there, kind of, I think, what you already mentioned it.
We documented it, I mean, it's
I
a
will,
meeting or 2 ago.
Oh, that is talented.
I've
I put one
slept
out
since
there, so I, okay, you're gonna chat about some for a minute then? If we're
Yep.
discussing?
let's go.
Okay,
I think we're officially tabling.
I think that would be good.
Yes.
Great, okay.
How does your organization track its impact on the community? Some people wrote how they tracked it and, as I recall, like reported on it. But some people just described their measures, and I don't know that it's necessarily useful for us to know the measures so much as, are we asking them to tell us about their impact on the community, or just how they track it?
Okay, so let's take a step back. What answer do we want from that question? Do we want to know that they are actively working on tracking their impact?
Maybe it's, we want both. We
do want
how
both.
do you track it, and then what are your most
Give us your
recent-
latest.
what are
Yeah.
the-
Yeah, the data and the interpretation of the data.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
How do we
Because I
get the
think both
data?
answers
What is
were
the
How do you
data?
collect it and
Yeah.
what's the outcome?
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect.
Well, that was interesting.
Great.
Like to think I'm usually a really good. No, not my beautiful application. Adam Smith said it was great. Don't, that's not up on my wall and I look at it at night. Okay, yeah, I will go back through.
You have other notes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
so-
do it.
Okay, okay, so the marketing question, I just am not, like, I don't know about these things, so I was like, oh, that sounds good. I don't know, is it good? Anyway, I just don't, I did not personally, as a reviewer, find a lot of value in the information that that particular question provided me.
Can you remind us what?
I am trying.
It's,
How do you market your organization's
Yes.
programs, activities, or existence to Wichita residents and visitors?
Oh, yeah,
So
and they would
other
say things like,
people are
we're in the
reading a lot.
newsletter, or
Yeah,
we
okay,
have
that's
the email blast.
social media.
Social, yeah. Yeah, no,
I
I,
like aspect of that question because maybe we look at how we write that, because I feel we're asking them, how do you share what you're doing with the community? Which is really what it comes down to with marketing So you can do all this sort of great work, but if no one in the community knows what you're doing, it's not valuable for us to give you those dollars if you're only serving a handful of people or aren't making a solid effort to reach a wider audience or reach your target audience.
I think
That
too.
is more important, sorry.
Yeah, what I would argue, like, for keeping that question is if we want to incentivize them to grow, part of that is having increased marketing. So if we make a marketing question part of the application and they're using this as a metric, well, how can I grow in this grant program? Let me have more strategic marketing because we're gonna ask about it.
Right.
And maybe that's as simple as asking some firm numbers, like, how many Facebook followers do you have? How many Instagram followers do you have?
More
And
than
you
just
can look
social
at
media,
it
that's
year to
huge.
year and see if it's increasing or decreasing. or-
This is, so I would like to hear, Dominic, your thoughts again, because I was writing, but, it does make me think of something that Becky Tuttle says in the Arts Council meetings a lot, which is, it's not enough to do good things, you have to be seen doing good
Yes.
things.
Right, that's right.
And so, yeah, I think that a marketing question is important. Can you restate what you were saying?
The gist of it is more how are you marketing or how are you reaching your target audience or expanding who you're doing? It's not just doing the good work, but trying to share that message and get people to be aware of the services you're doing. Like Music Theater Wichita does a fantastic job. And also they do a fantastic job of marketing by hitting you nonstop about what upcoming shows they have. If they didn't do that, I'd be completely unaware of what's happening and miss out on the opportunity this summer.
And there's some that don't have the money for marketing, but they have the money, they go do community outreach. That is a form of marketing.
I don't think, like Mark Arts does a good job of necessarily sharing all their outreach they've moved on to over the last few years. Like any of those other Coke adjacent nonprofits, they're at all those events. Like they are at, they're down with Empower and Nomar. They're doing things with the Create campaign. They are actively hitting the communities they weren't targeting 4 or 5 years ago, and how that's marketing and be able to share that story and that outreach.
So it's still a marketing question, but perhaps it's a little more general of just what is your outreach like?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I like that better.
okay.
In my brain, I'm just like marketing.
I like the idea of the question just because we're giving them money, we want to understand how are they making sure that people know that they exist.
And how do they know that we gave them money?
That's right.
It's marketing for us too.
How many times did you use our logo?
Central anchor
Yeah.
on the building required.
How many of you got tattoos?
Okay, well, I think in this discussion, something else I might want to see from this question is, if we're going to keep it general, like what are your outreach efforts, and then allowing them to describe their marketing initiatives or their community outreach, depending on if they have very strategic marketing, or both, or if they don't have a very specific marketing and they do more outreach. And then I would also like to know how they gauge the, how the community is receiving them. Are they engaging? Do they feel like they're getting strong engagement, or there's improvement for engagement when they are making these efforts and kind of like they're doing these things, but then what's their impression of where they're, how it's working?
Tracking them.
And that's, I think, we asked that question similar.
Tell us how many visitors did you have, as opposed to.
Sure.
So I think that there's ways to get that data across to multiple questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Hit me, I can take it. And also eat more food if you haven't.
Those were really good.
It's good.
Yeah,
Good
I love
bread.
it so much.
We've said it before, but this process is a lot easier from when I came on to this in 2020. The application, especially last year, was easy to navigate. It still takes a fair amount of time, but it could have been so much worse.
I know that this is probably not the easiest thing to remember, But how did the length of answers feel? Do you recall them feeling like they could be shorter? I ask that because Submittable has made it a little easier for me to limit them. I'm no longer, I don't have to limit them by character, I can now limit them by word. So I've got them at 250 words per answer, which is a lot.
Mhm.
So I can cut that down to 200.
I prefer more than less.
I didn't feel it was excessive last
Okay.
time. I think it's a wide variety between
I would be there.
your exploration place, which you know your large organizations you need to spend time with. And
Sure.
with the Track Flip Foundation, I can run through that application pretty quickly.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Because I have to Google like, how many words is 1,500 characters?
Characters are so annoying.
On average, it's this. Okay, great.
Any other thoughts on the application, anything, I mean, hopefully this, real quick, back to Q&A session, would we be doing Q&A for the anchor institutions this round, or would it be?
It would be everybody
Okay.
this round. This round, it would be everybody, but provided everybody moves into their particular tiers, this would be the last year we do everybody.
So
Except for, legacy institutions.
Okay, yes, legacy institutions, we won't be doing. I will say that.
So just, we may have to bring back that discussion on the length of the Q&A, but that's later discussion.
Later
It's just keeping in everyone's mind that I was getting real excited for a second.
I'm sorry. Next year, go fly right by. Just an afternoon. It'll be cheaper for me too.
Any other discussions? We've got quite a bit of work done.
We're so efficient.
So efficient.
Yeah.
Should hire us for federal work. All right.
All right, nothing else, I'd be open for a motion to adjourn, so I can go talk to those corporate lawyers.
That sounds fun.
You
No.
want us to hold you for?
Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
All
Is that
right,
necessary?
thank you, there you go.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Have a great day.
Some don't, yeah.